If resourceful learners are the explorers of the learning world, the knowledgeable learners are the navigators with a map. They have a map of the terrain of knowledge. They know what they know what they don't know. Because of this, they know what questions to ask and how to piece things together. It's almost like putting together a puzzle. Do you remember E.T. hiding in the closet full of stuffed animals? When I was a kid, we had a 1,000-piece puzzle of this scene from E.T. Let's use this as a metaphor. You have some of the picture pieced together, and by looking at the box, you have a sense of what you're looking for to complete the picture. The picture on the box is not the answer, it's like the map. It is a guide to what an answer might look like. Learning, like a puzzle, is a process of gathering new information and concepts, piecing them together into a meaningful whole, and connecting them to what you already know. What has been the most important background knowledge and background experiences for your own UDL learning? What are the connections that you've made? Take a moment to discuss this with your colleagues. This concept map could help. Pause here to discuss. All right, let's think about knowledgeable history learners. When first learning about life in ancient Egypt, they may compare it to other ancient cultures, leading them to questions like, where did they get their resources? What did they eat? What were their social structures? What were their beliefs? They've generalized from the study of other cultures that all of these must be present in some form. They use their understanding of another culture as a schema for building their knowledge and understanding of a new culture. This is the picture on the puzzle box that provides information about what to look for and what questions to ask. Now, why is this important? We'll all get there in the end, right? Well, prior knowledge and the ability to connect it to current learning is crucial to retention and deep understanding. In one study, prior knowledge of a topic was shown to account for up to 81% of the variance in post-test scores. So how do we support all learners to develop this clear sense of where they are, what they know, and what's next? This prior knowledge may be one of the greatest sources of variability in the classroom. Imagine building a house on a foundation of stone or on a foundation of sand. Many of the strategies that we discussed today will be very familiar. Our challenge designing for a UDL environment is to build many of these ideas into the design as options accessible as needed to all learners. If we think of curriculum as a single flow of learning along a specified path, natural variability tells us that some learners will start behind and likely fall further behind. If we think instead of a branched tree or a network of knowledge and skills to support our current work, we have to rethink many of the common ways of thinking about curriculum. A scope and sequence often defines specific knowledge and skills to be addressed over a certain period of time, but assumes all of the knowledge and skills up to that point have been mastered. Even the word curriculum comes from the Latin for a little race course. It is conceived of as a single path that everyone follows and the teacher leads and learners keep up or not. So often, when there's only one learning path available, learners who don't know as much fall further and further behind because they have no way of actually making all of the connections that more knowledgeable learners are making. Instead, we should think of providing a diverse set of readily accessible branching options for them to take responsibility for their learning, including filling out missing background. Here are a few ways to build background knowledge. Again, I'm sure you've heard most of these before. Think about how to design making all of this readily available to your learners. Direct instruction of relevant background knowledge has been shown to support learning. This could be background that you covered the day before or deeper background that's assumed. Providing readily accessible sources of background knowledge in the learning environment allows learners to access this as needed. Previewing has also been shown to be an effective way of supporting learners in orienting to new content. This could include supports as diverse as teaching relevant vocabulary, a list of characters, a plot synopsis, and introducing difficult concepts. In our puzzle analogy, this is like helping the learner think about the missing pieces. What shape are they? What color might they be? What do you see in the picture that would give you a relevant clue? A third approach to building background knowledge involves embedding new learning experiences in a greater experiential context, like a field experience, a project, a problem to be solved, or a story. To the degree that this is a motivating and meaningful learning experience, it can anchor and orient learners in their approach to new learning. You've worked with learners to build background knowledge. You've provided options in the learning experiences and environment for them to build background as needed. Now what? Here are just a few of the many ways to activate and connect that knowledge to new learning. Simply asking students to reflect and record what they know supports them to learn and connect new content. It might even be useful to think of learning new content as consisting of two integrated processes, learning and connecting. Concept maps can be a useful visual representation of prior knowledge. Having learners ask and answer questions before, during, and after a learning experience has also been shown to support new learning and retention. Practices like KWL charts, asking learners to record what they know, what they want to learn, and what they've learned, have also been shown to be effective ways to structure consolidation of what they've learned. If you find the puzzle piece of E.T.'s eye, but you don't have the rest of his head built yet, you can put it where you think it might be based on what you know from the box, but it is not yet fully integrated into the full picture. Interactive discussion with learners about what they already know can be an important way to assess, share between peers, activate, and prime background knowledge that will be important to understanding new learning. Using deep analysis of pictures to support reading can activate important background knowledge and concepts. There's a subtle but important distinction between this and multiple representations. Here, the additional representations are being used to pursue an additional goal to support the primary goal of the lesson. With the accessibility of so many different forms of media, this could easily be expanded to thoughtfully chosen video and audio material as well. In many online textbooks or learning environments, so many of these multiple media materials are hyperlinked and available to learners on demand. Teachers can also easily create these environments for learners. Important new discoveries from cognitive science point to the essential role of conceptual and metaphorical priming and framing for guiding attention and making learning actionable. When you give learners a specific conceptual frame or metaphor for organizing information, it influences the way they interpret new information and what they're able to do with it. It helps them build a skeleton to structure what they already know and connect their new learning. You may have noticed my use of abundant metaphors for exactly this reason during this video. Here's an example of one study looking at the organizing force of metaphors. 12th graders were studying the Constitution. They were using a hyperlinked software program and had a high degree of flexibility in navigating where they wanted to learn about the separation of powers and the War Powers Act. Hard stuff, right? The software contained everything from links to the Constitution to interviews with experts and historical figures, debates, essays, and letters. They were divided into 3 groups. One group of students were given no metaphorical priming. The second group had an irrelevant metaphor. And the third group was primed by thinking about a relevant metaphor to understanding power and decision-making, the family. The priming consisted of answering 10 questions about power and decision-making in their own family. They then jumped into using the software for 8 days. What happened? Each group was given a recall-focused multiple-choice test, as well as essay questions requiring them to apply what they had learned in new situations and develop coherent and supported arguments for their own position. The 3 groups did not differ significantly in their recall of basic facts on a multiple-choice test. However, when writing essays focused on application and making their own arguments, the learners who had been primed with the family metaphor for power and decision-making were better able to state their position clearly, consider multiple perspectives, provide relevant evidence, evaluate the position they took, and justify their own position. In short, priming with a relevant metaphor yielded deeper, more useful learning. Back to our puzzle. The more the puzzle you have done, the easier it gets. You have more of the picture figured out, and you have fewer missing pieces left to identify and a smaller pool of possible pieces to fit. As you build your knowledge and become more expert in an area, your learning accelerates and you feel a greater sense of mastery over your own learning. With branching, recursive learning paths readily available, more learners can begin to feel this sense of mastery. Our role as learning designers requires a careful study of prior knowledge required for current learning, including information, schemas, concepts, and metaphors, and the skills to support learners' current work. And we need to make strategic decisions about what to make available to support learners in connecting their new learning. Supporting the development of knowledgeable learners involves providing multiple options for learners to see all the puzzle pieces, guiding their strategic decision-making about how to assemble those pieces, as well as providing the picture on the top of the puzzle box to anchor their thinking.
Thank you for joining me for Module 4, Knowledgeable Learners in the UDL Designing for Expert Learners pathway.